Hello. In this week's module, we're going to be discussing armatures, or creating a bone structure that we can then use to animate our objects. I'm going to go through the armature process with you for the homework this week, though uh, it'll be up to you to fully animate the armature before turning in the homework assignment. So please download the file, and we will both start right here. You can see we have our cactus. Um, what we need though is something called an armature. So while in object mode, we're going to make sure we have nothing selected. And we're going to hit Shift A. We're going to add in, instead of being mesh or anything like that, we're going to go down to armature. And what this is going to do is if we hide the cylinder, you can see it's added in a little, I think it's called a tetrahedron. With the armature selected, we're going to go to our object data properties, viewport display, and then we're going to say in front. We want to be able to see this from all sides so it's easier to comprehend what's going on. And that way we don't have to try clicking it through the object. All right, so with that in front, we're going to select this bone. We're going to tab into edit mode, and you're going to see that it's now got this top hinge, basically, or joint selected. We can move this around just like any other object, but you'll notice the bottom of it staying pivoted where it's placed, and that's normal. So, if you want to move the bottom, you can, but just know that that bottom is the pivot point for the entirety of this bone. We're going to start by grabbing this with G and raising it on the Z axis so it goes straight up, and I'm just going to raise it up to the top of the head, like that. And that may seem a little bit excessive, but next up, we're going to right click the bone and hit subdivide. And with both of them selected, we're going to subdivide one more time. And this is going to give us 4 bones to work with for the whole body. And that's fine. We don't need many more than that. Too much more than that, it'll be overly complicated for no reason. And we want to avoid doing things like that. So for the next part, we're going to be adding the arms. However, there is 2 ways to do it. And I'm going to show you both ways. However, I am only going to keep one of these ways for simplicity's sake. So the first way, we can, with our armature in edit mode, we can select our bone joint right here. And off of this joint, we can actually extrude, right? So we can just extrude and drag it down, and we can keep extruding for the arm. However, that leaves this big bone here, and it's a little unsettling and can cause weird things to happen when it comes to like weight painting, which we'll get to here in a little bit. So instead of doing this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click off of it and I'm gonna hit Shift A, and that's gonna add in a bone automatically for me. And I'm just gonna select this whole thing, grab it, and drag it over. I'm gonna put it into place here. And then just like before on the other version, I'm going to extrude like so. So now you can see that our arm is not attached to our body, and that's perfectly okay. And what we want to do is we will select this bone, and we're going to select this bone, and we're going to hit Control P. And that's going to make parent, and then we're going to keep the offset. And you'll see that this dotted line here now connects our arm, shoulder bone to our um, main bone. So how do we get this to the other side? Well, we could just make it, but if we made it, then things wouldn't be perfectly centered. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go into my armature over here, and I'm going to find the bones that I'm working on. So if I select this, you can see it's bone 4, and I'm going to just name this shoulder.L. And that .L stands for left. Assuming that we are looking at the person, it would be the character's left arm. Uh, Next up, this is going to be arm.L, and then elbow.L, and hand.L. So with all of these marked as .L, what we can do then is select them, right click, and symmetrize. And you can see that it's automatically connected our bones, and it's automatically made it perfectly symmetrical to our left side. In addition to that, it's also renamed them to .R, standing for right, of course. So at this point, we are almost actually done with the bone rigging of sorts. What we're going to do is we're going to go out of edit mode, so back to object. We're going to select our armature, and then we're going to shift select our cylinder, and again we're going to just hit P. Oh, sorry. We're going to select our object, and then shift select our armature, and then, I'm sorry, control P. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us some options. And these options are not like normal parenting options, as you may have just noticed with the connected or keep offset from the previous set parent. So what we have here is we have options to do weights, envelope weights, empty groups. We're going to do automatic weights. And what this is going to let us do is if we select our object and we go into weight paint, you can see that if we have certain bones selected, here, let's go back to object. We're going to select that, then shift select that, and then go to weights. Armature, then cylinder or object, and then go to weight paint. And this will allow us to shift click and select our areas that we want to influence. So you can see that just from based off distance, it has auto calculated where everything should be influenced and by what. So we're gonna double tap A to deselect everything. That way you can get single bone targets. So you can see that if I select this bone, that it's not entirely red. And what this is it's a heat map of how influenced those areas are. So you can see that in this area, it's not entirely red. Red means it's fully being, um, well, like this. It's fully being uh, affected by this bone. So the greener it gets, this is actually a really good example right here, how it goes from dark red down to green to the teal to the light blue or to the dark blue. Dark blue means it's not being affected at all. So you can see that this head bone is not affecting any other part of the body. It's only affecting the areas up here. If I go to, um, if I select just the armature, I go to object mode, I select just the armature, and I go to pose mode, you can see that if I move this bone, it's only going to move the area in the designated um, heat map, which means that all of these bones are going to do the same thing. While in heat map mode, you can, of course, paint your own weights if you have problematic areas, which we are going to do. We will have problematic areas right around where the arms connect with the inside of the cactus, but we're going to fix that a different way. We are not going to have to automatically weight paint because that still will not fix the problem that we have. So, to show you the problem that we are going to have, I'm going to go here, and I am in pose mode, meaning when I turn this, you can see that if I turn the shoulder at all, we're going to end up with some weird shapes um, because of how things are positioned. So how do we fix things like this? Well, one, we undo that. Two, we're going to go into edit mode with our armature selected. We're going to start by just dragging the shoulder inward here. I'm going to delete those bones, and then I'm going to resymmetrize these bones. And that's going to just reset up that situation on the other side for me. So with this moved out, it's less likely to affect the skin here, but there's also another issue in that it was affecting the inner side of the cactus, and we don't want that. And this should fix that. The other issue is that it was rotating the inside of the arm out. So how do we fix that? Well, the main way to fix it is to extend it so that it's being influenced by another bone. In this specific instance is how we would fix it. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to select my object, tab into edit mode, and I'm just going to go right here and select all these faces. And all I'm going to do is hit H to hide. And you can now see that I've got the inside of these visible. With those visible, we're going to go to Edge Select. I'm going to highlight just the edges that I want to work with. Probably go into X-ray mode to make it a little more efficient here. Extrude, or we could probably just grab it, drag it on the X-axis. Yeah, and it's not going to change the arm too much. But let's X, or drag X. We'll drag it over by 0.5. That means I can go to this side. I can grab it on the X-axis and do negative 0.5. And that way I know they'll both be the exact same. And that'll take care of any problems because now these are going to be close enough to the center bone here that they will be slightly influenced by that bone, taking away all the power that this bone is going to have over these vertices. So we're going to hit Alt H to unhide our faces. We're going to go out of edit mode, out of X-ray mode, and we are going to we'll go to the cylinder, and we're going to just adjust the cylinder's parent. That's going to be located under the object properties, and then we're going to go down to relations, and we're just going to click the X on this parent relationship here. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to reparent by selecting the object and then shift selecting the armature again. We're going to hit Control P, and again, we're just going to do automatic weights. So just as a quick test this time, we're going to select the armature, go into pose mode, and we'll just rotate this. And you can see that it is relatively staying where we want it to, and we can now proceed with the last little bit of this um, rigging. So we're going to go to edit mode, and I'm going to do a thing, and it's not going to quite make sense, but instead of having this perfectly straight, what we want to do is put a little bit of bend in him. And we're going to do that by grabbing this, hitting G, and then I'm just going to move it on the y-axis. And I'm just going to give it a slight bend. Nothing spectacular, just like that. Now, we don't want to do this before we've auto-weighted it, because then it's going to skew how our weights affect different things on the body, and we don't want that. But you'll see why we're doing this in just a second. So again, I'm just going to grab this one. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to actually go the other direction. So G to grab, Y axis, and I'm just going to grab it like that. We don't really need the top one, though you can grab it and bring it back a little bit if you wanted to, just to give it a kind of a S curve like that. So why did I do this? Well, we're going to go to pose mode, and I'm going to start selecting bones. And I'm going to start with, well, let's start with this bone. Now, with this bone selected, I'm going to go to our bone modifiers, wherever they are. Not modifiers, bone constraints. I'm going to add a bone constraint, and now we're going to add in inverse kinematics. And you'll see it turns that bone orange, and the chain length is set to 0, which is automatic, I believe. But that's the same, currently it's the same as setting it to 2. You can see very faintly here, there's an orange line going from the top of this to the bottom of this. And that means it's going to go from here to here is 1, here to here is 2 in this chain link. And we're going to select the next bone. We're going to do the same thing. Inverse kinematics. And we're going to just manually set this to 2 so you can see that that chain link is being made. And then we're going to select the head again, except this time we can add 2, or we can actually add 3 if we wanted. So what this is going to do is, since I'm in pose mode, I'm going to grab the head, and you can see that not only is it going to affect the head now, it's going to affect the other body parts as well when I go to move and contort the character. There's 2 more that I want to do, and that's going to be right here. So I'm going to add this, inverse kinematics, and again, I'm just going to set the chain length where I think it's reasonable. And for the arms, I'm just going to set it to 4 so it goes all the way back to the base. And this is actually a really good demonstration of that line jumping down the chain. You can see, so there's 2. 1 you're not going to see because it just goes down the middle of itself. 3, and then there's 4. Last one, 4, and now we are ready to animate.